Welcome back, one and all, to the Informed Idiots and the NFL playoffs.
Yes,
Once
yes,
again,
yes.
we're getting really good about these hiatuses, taking long breaks in between our recording
Listen,
sessions.
it's the
Um,
holidays. It's completely understandable. It's all
Life
right.
keeps lifing. Life keeps
Yes,
lifing.
yes. I hope
So,
everybody had good holidays. I hope everybody had Happy New Year's, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, whatever you feel like saying. All that. Much
no,
love to
the
everybody.
holidays right now is it's NFL playoff season.
Oh
That's
yeah.
the holiday that I'm celebrating right now. Um, And to kick it off, I want to get started first and foremost with let's tackle the Chiefs versus the Texans. I think that's probably the game that the two of us have the most to talk about and the most that we've thought about. So I know that you had some stats that you were wanting to talk about. Were you wanting to talk about them now, or do you want to save those for later?
No. Those are later. Yeah, those are for later. Those are like
Okay.
said.
So Chiefs versus Texans, round two, 2024. What are your initial thoughts coming into this weekend?
Honestly, I feel pretty confident. I mean, it's probably I don't want to call it ignorance, but I mean, I feel pretty confident about beating this team. We did it. The last home game was against them. We looked pretty good playing against them. Not only will we have rest going into this game, or more rest going into that game, because I believe that was our first game, or in the one of those games between
It
that
was
was
in the
the
stretch of three
three
games in 11
three
days.
games, and yeah, so not only are we coming in with rest, and you know what Andy Reid can do after a bye. His record is pretty good after that. So I feel pretty confident because of that, and only because we get some players that are coming back, and I feel like Pop, I know that he's been back already, but it takes a while to come back from an injury. You don't normally, you're not back to yourself normally the first game that you come back.
Well,
So
and Mahomes going into the first matchup was coming off of the rolled ankle game as
exactly,
well.
exactly.
So I thought it was interesting. Justin Watson had an interview last week, I believe, where he was talking about Patrick in the preseason was talking to the team and basically said to them at that point, we're going to go into the Christmas Day game. We're going to win that game. We're going to lock up the 1 seed and we're going to get to rest.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, that's what they got. Um,
Yep.
I wrote down an absolute ton of different stats for this game that I want to talk about. So there was a TikTok that I saw where a guy was basically just kind of eviscerating the Chiefs and the referee conversation. And so there's a couple of really interesting stats that I just want to read out before we start talking about this game more.
Okay.
The Chiefs were called for 846 more penalty yards than their opponents this season, which is the third most in that span. We had since Mahomes started, we have 196 holding calls, which is the most in that span. Of the 4,100 plus dropbacks that Mahomes has had in his career, he has had 30 roughing the passer calls benefit him. Since 2009, that is 16th. So a pretty significant number there.
Mm-hmm.
That's an average of 4.2 per season. So magically, all of these fans, they must only be calling them at the absolute largest times, except that in 3rd and 10 plus and 4th and 5 plus this year, the Chiefs have only had 2 penalties benefit them. That is 15th in the league. Penalties in the second half of 1-score games this year, the Chiefs have the most flags thrown against them as a team this year. And one of the reasons that this guy basically kind of landed on is since Mahomes has been the starting quarterback for the Chiefs, we have had 37 primetime games and 18 playoff games, which means every NFL fan that is not a Chiefs fan has essentially watched almost 3 seasons of Chiefs football. So it's just the same thing that happened with the Patriots. When everybody watches you and you beat everybody, naturally people want to try and find reasons and justifications for that. and most people aren't logical or well thought out. And so they end with the easy argument, which is just, as we did right there, just very easily, completely torn apart. So, talking about this matchup in particular, the first stat I want to bring up is yards after the catch. The Chiefs this season are third in the NFL. I doubt many fans would have thought that the Chiefs, with the terrible broken offense, that we're third in the league in yards after the catch. The Houston Texans are the number one defense in giving up yards after the catch.
Oh, nice.
Even though they are an incredibly good pass defense, it doesn't sound like they're a very good tackling defense. The Chiefs have used the multiple tight end sets at a 51% rate this season, which is number one in the league. And the Texans ran their nickel package on defense at 81% of their snaps this year. They were, that's number two in the NFL. They give up a half a yard per play, number two in the league, at a success rate of only 38.3% when they are in the nickel. But if you don't know what the nickel is one extra cornerback and one less linebacker, which is not what you want to do when there are multiple tight ends on the field. So over half the time, the Chiefs are going to have an extra tight end on the field. And so we'll see what that matchup looks like, because the depth of the linebacker position for the Texans isn't that great. Plus Azeez Al-Shaair, their kind of hyper athlete, borderline dirty player, is coming off of a knee injury and was limited in practice this week.
I heard Nixon got put on the injury.
He's listed as questionable, but he'll play. But again, it's just another one of those little. It's exactly what you were talking about earlier. We've got all the rest. We have Kareem Hunt and Pacheco now. Both of those guys are theoretically probably as healthy as they've been this season.
Kareem was talking about he was having trouble getting out of the bed or a couch because he was feeling so.
Look, people, the story of the Chiefs this season has been just it's one of those things where I try and be unbiased as a fan, but it's like, how has the media as a whole, this is some of the worst reporting on a team that's been done. It's just lazy.
How are they talking about Lamar Jackson more than they're talking? Like, I understand he's good. Don't get me wrong. But for some reason, the media loves to talk more about Lamar than they do about Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I'm fine with that, because statistically, Lamar has been doing things at an insane rate. What I mean more so is the Chiefs are a phenomenal story from top to bottom this year. Number one wide receiver goes out first play of the season. Number two wide receiver goes out later on. Our rookie tight end, who was supposed to be the 3/2, out for the year. Our number one running back out for the majority of the year. Our number two cornerback out for the majority of the year. Defensive linemen coming back throughout the season off of injury. Bringing in talent throughout the season, and guys, literally, Kareem Hunt, signed him. 4 days later, you're starting. You get 30 carries in that game. He hasn't practiced or played all off season. DeAndre Hopkins, 4 days on the team. You're starting for us because you have to, and immediately making an impact. Like the positive storylines for this team, not even just positive, the interesting storylines for this team are so deep and so plentiful. It is a travesty that they haven't talked about them in this way. And for me, that's kind of where it is. It's like, this team is getting healthier coming into the end of the year. We're getting guys back at the end of the year. We've basically been the best team in football all season long. And a lot of this season has been them figuring out what they're doing week to week. And now we've had 3 weeks of rest where they've got to figure out how to use all these guys and actually have them on the field together. So I'm really, really interested to see what this team looks like this weekend.
Oh, yeah. No.
The Chiefs offense has the third highest success rate on third down in the league this year at 51.1%. Mahomes is completing 65% of his passes and has thrown for 87 first downs or scrambled for them on third down. The Texans D is the third lowest third down success rate in the league at 38.2%. So these are the things, these are the moments, the secondary and the third down. Those are the things that I'm going to be really watching for this weekend to see how do they combat it versus how do we combat it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about Trent McDuffie a little bit, and I want to talk about the Texans offense.
Okay.
The Texans offense is basically where the Chiefs offense has been last year and a majority of this season, where you really have one guy, Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Who's the second receiver that's going to start for them this weekend, Yvonne? Do you know?
No.
See, there's my point, right? Like, that's the Chiefs.
But yeah,
majority this season.
Yeah.
So Trent McDuffie this season led the NFL in snaps where he was aligned 3 yards or closer to the wide receiver, 65.3%. That is the second highest single season pass rate with a minimum of 250 coverage snaps in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Nico Collins has got 33, has had 33 targets on 103 route run versus press. So 31% of the time he's going to get a target. He has 21 catches, 335 yards, and 3 touchdowns in those situations. I believe in the last matchup, he was targeted 3 times and had 5 yards or 15 yards receiving when McDuffie was lined up against him. So, and McDuffie followed Nico Collins 50% of the time he was on the field.
Last time? Nice.
So now this weekend we get Jalen Watson back. And if you're not paying attention, no, he's back.
Okay.
They announced that he's back. He's probably going to start this weekend, Nate Taylor said.
That's so bad. That's so
that is another thing, a feather in our hat. But I'm interested to see how if they put Trent on him a little more with Watson back, or if it actually goes lower because they have a higher trust level in Jalen Watson than Najee Johnson or Joshua Williams. But I do remember multiple snaps with Williams on Collins in that game. And that's much more of a size versus size matchup that I actually like. But that's kind of what you get with Jalen Watson. He's a bigger, longer corner. So those are going to be really interesting to me. Now,
well, real quick on the Texans offense. I heard this today, and I'm whenever I heard it, I was like, actually, because I was listening to the drive and see that too. So shout out, see that. I was listening to he had somebody from Houston, radio host from Houston, and he's actually the one that dropped the stat that Houston's offense has only scored 2 touchdowns, no more than 2 touchdowns in a game the last 12 games.
Yeah. I was listening to that tap today on my drive home too.
I was like, what? And obviously, like he said, obviously the defense has picked up and, helped win some of the games. But that's just that right there just kind of just blew my mind.
By quarter, 94 points in the first quarter scored this year for the Texans, 129 in the second. The second half, they fall off a cliff. 65 points scored in the third, 84 points scored in the fourth. The Chiefs, 70 points in the first, 141 in the second, 59 in the third, but then we go to 109 in the fourth quarter. We have 17 rushing touchdowns on the season. They have 15. They have 20 passing touchdowns. We have 26.
Okay.
So just to give you that example. In the red zone, they're scoring at a 49% clip. They have 28 touchdowns and 19 turnovers. The Chiefs are at 53.8%. We have 35 touchdowns and 14 turnovers. So it'll be an interesting matchup in that regards too. Now, the Texans defense, coming off of that literal historic game last weekend, they had 11 players with with 96 plus pass rush snaps this season. Only 4 of those players had a quarterback pressure rate over 9%. Hunter and Anderson, Will Anderson Jr., are the clear top dogs for them at a 19% and 17% quarterback pressure rate. These numbers were kind of surprising to me. 4.91 and 4.27 seconds. That's their time to sack. 2.76 and 2.83 seconds is their time to pressure. Damn. And I think I had Mahomes' time to pass thrown down here. Mahomes is averaging 2.79 seconds time to throw and a 2.93 time to pressure rate as an offense this year. So both of our numbers are faster than theirs. So that'll be interesting to see. Of their top 7 defensive linemen, only 3 of them have a 2.83 second time to pressure or faster. Autry, Hunter, and Anderson. With no blitzing, they only have 1 player with a time to pressure less than 2.82 seconds. So just they're down 4, not great. Now, Autry's the only lineman with a time to pressure under 2.68 seconds while they're blitzing. They have 0 players with a time to sack less than 3.01 seconds when they blitz. So it's actually kind of counterintuitive to blitz, as the Texans, their pressure numbers are worse. Now, versus the Chargers, just to highlight the insanity that was last week for them. They had 3 players with 5 or more quarterback pressures. Will Anderson had 7.
Yep.
And 6 of those were deemed as quick pressures, which is a pressure at 3 seconds or less.
Okay.
The quickest time to sack was Will Anderson at 3.69. Autry was at 3.85, and Mario Edwards had 1 sack at 3.89. Hunter had 5 pressures. The other defensive end, 3 of those were quick. They had 6 players with a time to pressure at 1.96 seconds, between 1.9 and 2.76 seconds. Mm-hmm. So just, that's a lot of numbers to throw at you. Basically what that is saying is they had pressure on the quarterback at an insanely fast rate.
Oh, yeah.
A quick pressure at Next Gen Stats is 3 seconds or less. They had 5 guys that were at less than that, just down to down in that game.
That's one of the things that I was going to say is that I was one of the guys, if anybody that I'm worried about on their offense is Will Anderson. He's just because, you know, how much trouble we're having in the offensive line. I hope he doesn't make Patrick get rid of the ball too quick.
So I'm probably more worried about Danielle Hunter, because Hunter is more of the pure pass rusher on their line. Anderson is like a steroid version of George Karlaftis. He's not really an insane pass rusher, but he's good. He's not really like an insane level run defender, but he's really good. Mm-hmm. And that's more of the type of player that I see Will Anderson as. So I agree, but just a little. It's probably 13 to 20% less worried than what you have, because he is more of an all-around, high energy, high effort type of a guy. That's why his sack number, that time to sack number, is a little higher, in my opinion, because he works to get his rather than killing a guy with the first pass rush move. So I think that ends up boding well for us, though, because there's 3 quarterbacks that are in the caliber of creating after a play breaks down or in pressure, and we're going to see all 3 of them this week, and 2 of them get to play each other.
Oh yeah, I very much think that whatever the over and under is for Patrick Mahomes yards, he'll probably go over that.
Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to see, because they lost Jalen Petrie, their stud safety, early in the year. They lost Jimmy Ward against us in the game earlier. So I'm interested to see what happens if we can hit some of these quick routes and what happens yak wise for the team. I'm interested to see if we can hold up long enough to get some deep shots. Justin Watson may end up with one or two big catches down the field for us in this game.
I think Worthy might once again, because he's the one that's been kind of steady eating.
Worthy, I think they're using. He'll definitely run some go routes and run some deep shots. But I think I'm more interested to see how they use him underneath and how they get creative with their stacks and their releases, because I think they're going to end up confusing the secondary. There's going to be a lot of three guys, 3x1s, motion a guy over. We'll get 4 guys on one side of the defense, and there's going to be switch releases and pivot routes. And I think that's where we're going to see Xavier Worthy really eat is, catching the 5-yarders, turning them into 13, 18-yarders. And I think we see Kelsey always knows how to step up in the playoffs, but I think this could be one of the big Kelsey games that we finally see.
I agree.
Season. And I think we probably see. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a big DeAndre Hopkins game, but I could see them really highlighting one or two of these guys that they haven't really utilized as like a focal point, just to get it on tape, to establish a new threat.
Here's the reason why I think you're right about D-Hop. I think they were low managing him, kind of low managing him in low capacity during the regular season because of that pick, that 4th or 5th round pick or whatever. They might not tell you that that's what they were doing, but I think that was the case. So now that we got,
I don't think it was like their main.
I don't think that was their main
factor, but it was like, okay, we don't need to, so let's see if we can just
exactly. So now that that's pretty much off the table, I feel like we're going to try to use him as much as possible. I'm not saying we're going to throw it to him every down, but we are going to try to use him. And the one thing that also goes into factor is that him and I believe Brown have never been to any of the title games, so any of the championship games. So I'm sure that's going to be a huge driving factor for just him. So I can only imagine what I'm sure the team wants to, see them win the Super Bowl as well. So
look, I think any veteran that ends up on the Chiefs has that same thought process, right? Especially a guy like DeAndre Hopkins and a guy like Hollywood Brown. They've been on good teams the majority of their careers, and they've never really seen success like they're seeing with this team in Kansas City. And especially for a guy like Hollywood Brown, this is all the tape he's really going to have for the year, and he's on a 1-year deal. So, I don't know what his mentality is, if he wants another bag or if he's just, trying to do everything he can to get a ring. But I can't imagine easier motivation and like really wanting to play your best. And both of those guys feels like once you hit the Chiefs locker room, you lose that ego and you lose that selfishness, and it does truly become, well, what do I got to do to win this game for the team?
Just because I think you see everybody else not have that ego, I think that's why it's pretty easy to do it. But as far as D-Hop goes, I myself think that probably if we do win the Super Bowl, he probably calls it quits, just because he doesn't really have anything else to play for, and you can clearly see that his body's hurting. Brown, I feel like he might stick around another year just because of the injury and everything. He'll probably want to go out in another round. And I feel like
he's on his third. This is his 3rd or 4th contract. He's signed to a couple of teams already before. So it makes sense to me. Like, you've gotten good money. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
I think every NFL player is motivated by a big paycheck, but I do think that there are a lot of these guys that get to this point of their career and they're ready to I kind of counter your point. I I could very easily see DeAndre Hopkins signing a couple of near vet minimum deals to stay on the Chiefs and just try and grab a couple of rings because he doesn't need to be the one.
Yeah.
I think he's really taken to it. I mean, the amount of post game press conferences and interviews that he's talked about how much he has taken on the leadership role in the wide receiver room and challenging Xavier Worthy like he was challenged by Larry Fitzgerald and Andre Johnson when
Mhm.
he was coming
Mhm.
up. Like I think there is something to be said to be the vet in the room, to have a Hall of Fame career and to be able to finish it. Like, think about what DeAndre Hopkins has gone through in his career. Do you really want to only play one season with Patrick Mahomes?
No, I'm not.
You
I'm
know,
not.
like that's my only real major
I'm
counter.
sure
Is
he
like
would
I
love
could
to play more, but if you look at it, he isn't necessarily, and he wasn't necessarily in our plan this year. And with Hollywood Brown probably coming back, we'll have Rashid Rice. We'll have Xavier Worthy. Um, D Hop would have to. I mean, I don't know if there's room for him per se, but I would
that,
love to have him back. Don't get me
no
wrong. I
that
would
and
love to have him back.
I'm with you. That's where I could really see him signing a vet min deal and just saying, hey, as long as I can make some impact plays and I don't need to be the one, I don't need to be the two. Like let the young boys eat. But if I'm the 3 or 4 wide receiver, we probably have the best 3 or 4 wide receiver in the league.
Oh,
And like
I very much agree. Yeah, no, that's that. Like I said, I just if he's up to doing that, awesome,
yeah,
great.
sign me
But
up twice.
yeah, so
Um, so scoring defense wise for these two teams, I thought the numbers were pretty interesting too. The Texans by quarter 74-87, second half 100-111. So this team has shown that they get worse as the game goes on. So to me, that's kind of an interesting, I haven't dug into it, just raw numbers. My first thought is, well, teams are figuring out what to do adjustment wise in the second half. And it's probably also a combination of their offense hasn't been that great this year and is probably just putting their defense on the field more and more in the second half as the game goes on. The Chiefs, by contrast, 63 points in the first. They've given up 100 points in the second quarter, but then in the second half, it's 76-87. So a little bit tighter, and they don't quite slip as much in the second half as far as defense goes. So I'm interested. My kind of final thoughts on this game offensively for the Chiefs. I'm really interested to see how they use the 2 running backs. It felt like as the season came to an end, they kind of slotted in to place a little more. I think, in my opinion, I would like to see Kareem Hunt start and be the short yardage guy. And I
mhm.
would like to see them use Isaiah Pacheco as the change of pace guy. But, it's, I don't want to say 1A, 1B, but I think it should be a clear like 1 and 2, right? Like the traditional old school tandem backfield that we used to see when we were growing up in the early 2000s and the early 2010s, right? Where you had the real like the Lions this year, right? Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah.
And
So
then go ahead.
no, I mean, I was just gonna pretty much agree with you. Like, now this might be the unpopular opinion, to be honest, but I think Kareem Hunt is a better running back than I said Pacheco. Now, I know a lot of people don't think that, but that's just my personal opinion. So I would like to see, like, just like you said, I think they do split backs, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be like 50-50. If we run it 20, everybody is going to get 10. But I do think because of, like I said, he's still coming back from that injury. I said Pacheco might get 8. If we do run at 20, I said Pacheco gets 8. Well, Kareem Hunt gets 12, So, like, I think, like you said, he does get a little bit slighter, but I don't think it's necessarily like that much more. Because I do believe that the team wants to have Isaiah Pacheco more than they do Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, and yes. For me, since we drafted Pacheco, we've made the joke that he's the slowest 4.3 in the league, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I love that he runs angry and he runs hard, and I love that he pops up. But to me, like, that's his best quality is he plays really hard.
Mm-hmm.
He's not fast enough for how fast he runs in the 40. He's not agile. He doesn't juke guys.
He's
He
not
just
big
runs through
enough.
guys. And it's like, and he's been hurt every year because of it. So I think
Mm-hmm.
this is a perfect situation. There's a stat that I wanted to bring up. Here we go.
Ooh, I love
The
stats. You know
Chiefs,
me.
the Chiefs gained 10 or more rushing yards on 5.4% of designed runs this season, the lowest rate in the NFL. Their rushers reached 15 plus miles per hour on 9.2% of designed carries. That is also the lowest rate in the league. Pacheco's explosive run rate was 3.6%. That is the lowest among rushers with at least 75 carries. Kareem Hunt's explosive rush rate was 5.5%, which is the lowest among rushers with at least 150 carries. But I think that stat lies to the general public because Pacheco barely played at the beginning of the year and we immediately were losing receivers, and then he broke his damn leg. And then we signed a guy off the street because we had Carson Steele, who played fullback for us more often than not and was a kick returner who got shoved into the starting lineup.
Right.
So to me, I think what we just talked about, if we can get to a 9% of our runs are 10 plus yarders, like that will do a huge service to the offense overall. And I also think the fact that the passing offense is so much better now is going to help those guys get more 10, 12-yard runs. But kind of exactly what you're saying. I think Isaiah Pacheco is a more than serviceable running back, slightly above average.
Right.
But he is ideally a number 2 running back, and you can use him. He can be a high usage number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then the combination of receivers, I'm really curious to see the combos that they put out on the field. I'm curious to see who are the 2 wide receivers when they're in 2 wide receiver sets and they have 2 tight ends out there. Is it going to be Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown? Is it DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise? Is it Justin Watson and Juju Smith-Schuster? I'm really, really curious to see how they pair those guys up and what they do with them. Because I think they all are more than willing blockers. Some of them are better than others. I think they're all good route runners. Some of them are better than the others. So it's just going to be really interesting to see how they tier that out. And then to counter that, do we force the Texans out of their nickel? Do we force them to have more running backs on the field? Do they go 5 linemen versus us and try and keep their defensive? So I'm interested to see kind of the chess match in that side. And then what do you think about the talking point that everybody's kind of come up with because CJ Stroud finally ran the ball last week? I think he had like 45 yards rushing, but do you see that being a big factor in this week's game?
Not necessarily, just because I feel like CJ Stroud's only runs whenever he has to. I don't think they'll have any plays necessarily, scripted out for him.
Oh, yeah,
run.
he's a scrambler. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know for as far as running backs go, I know that we've done a pretty good job of stopping the rush. So I think we'll be even whenever we play Lamar Jackson. I mean, every now and then, the best of the best, one of the best, I guess you should say.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we contain him as far as any rushing yards or anything like that goes. So
Yeah.
I'm not really worried about him. CJ Stroud. He might break out a game or a rush or two, but it's not anything that's going to hurt us necessarily. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not worried, but I'm not hyper confident. Um, I just feel like when you look at the matchup top to bottom, both sides of the ball versus both sides of the ball, it's hard to find any real area outside of like Nico Collins is the best wide receiver on the field. Okay.
Yeah.
But we probably have the best defensive lineman on the field. I'll take McDuffie and Stingley as a wash for best DB. Our safeties are better than their safeties. Our backers are better than their backers. I think I trust our D line rotation more than I trust theirs. I definitely trust our offensive line more than I trust theirs. They've been one of the worst offensive lines in football. They can't run the ball consistently, and we can. I just don't, outside of something catastrophic, I don't really see what the path to victory is for the Texans in this weekend's game.
So which kind of, I mean, I heard this question today, and kind of I wanted to ask you today. I hear this question quite often. Once again, C. Dot asks to all the people that he has come in as a guest. So Texas win if, and well, Chiefs win if, but I think we pretty much know how the Chiefs
Texans win if there's a big injury. Chiefs win if everything goes the way it should.
Yep.
The Chiefs, and I was hearing him, and I think he said he's predicting 27 plus points out of the Chiefs. And I think it was like the Chiefs have averaged like 30 plus in this round of the playoffs in Mahomes' career. So, I just we've talked about this off air in just our conversations, and it's like I don't feel like it's braggadocious, but it's like this team has the last 8 weeks of the season, the Chiefs have just continually gotten better. And from that point, at that point 8 weeks ago, they were the best team in football, and they've just gotten better. And they've only gotten a chance to get healthier. So to me, this all comes down to staying healthy through this game and just doing what you should be doing. This is a very much the Chiefs have to beat themselves and lose this game. It's going to be a monumentous task for the Texans to actually win this game.
I agree.
So
I think it's only certain that the Arrowhead Invitational is happening once again, aka the AFC Championship.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to get ahead of myself with that, but I think that there's the chances are much higher than not that we'll be playing in Kansas City next weekend.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, what you got next?
All right. So there's only 3 other games for us to talk about. Do you have one in particular you want to start with? I kind of want to save the Bills Ravens talk for last. So I want to tell you about. I was on a cruise ship this last weekend. So I watched the entire first round of playoffs on the 11th deck of a Royal Caribbean cruise liner on the projector screen above the pool. If you haven't watched a playoff game in that setting, I highly encourage it. It was really, really fun. But I watched the Commanders game with a Commanders fan from North Carolina. Shout out Trenton, father of 5. And we had such a fun conversation because, I was telling him, I'm like, dude, I was 30, but before the Chiefs drafted a quarterback in the first round, and that was my whole life. And that one guy they took was Mahomes. So like, I get where you're coming from with this. Like, I know the exact feeling that you're feeling right now, watching what is happening in this game and the freak out at the end, oh my, what a way to get your first playoff win in that long. And every year I feel like there's a team like this, and I'm gonna probably piss some Bengals fans off with this, but every year in the playoffs, they're typically as a team that is playing with house money, that comes in and there is no expectation. You are not supposed to do anything, and that team is
Mhm.
always a dangerous team. The Bengals were that team. That was the one
Yep.
year they were good. And then outside of that, as soon as there was pressure on them, as soon as people were like, "Oh, you guys are good? Well, be good." They haven't.
Yep.
And so I'm really interested. And the Lions have done really, really well this year with all the expectation on them. So I'm really curious to see, because I think this is the two polar opposites. I don't think there's a team in the playoffs right now that has more of an expectation on them than the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs coming into this year were the two teams that everybody thought had the highest chance of seeing each other at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs are going for the third straight Super Bowl victory, not just third straight Super Bowl appearance. I think they have proven more than enough that we know how to handle playing under pressure. We
Yep.
did it all season long through all these one-score games. The Lions have really shown they can play with the expectation, and they can play through the injuries. Their coaching staff is one of the few coaching staffs that, like, if you wanted to swap one for one, that's one of the few that I would be like, okay, I'll take your head coach and your two coordinators and we can swap. That's how highly I think of those guys. Motivation wise, culture wise, just these teams, Kansas City and Detroit, it is top to bottom, active roster, playoffs, practice squad guys, everybody in the building. I mean, you work for the Chiefs, going into, everybody in that building believes. And so I don't think they're going to falter, but I think the Commanders can be a lot froggier than teams are going to expect.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think their defense is quite there to keep them really in this game. I am so excited to see what Jaden Daniels and that offense does against a dinged up Lions defense, because that is the one thing that could cost the Lions, is how many injuries they've had on the defensive side of the ball.
All I'm gonna say, man, is I told everybody on this podcast from the beginning,
Bro, I thought
Washington.
you were a crazy person.
I know.
I thought they were going to be, they're going to be plucky. They're going to be better than people think. But you saw from preseason, you were calling this team to be a playoff team. And so put that on the board.
Bro,
that is a big dub for you.
I'm telling you. And I told you about Green Bay too. I mean, I just don't like that it factor. I just don't see it with Green Bay. But I see it with Jalen, dude. And I mean, listen, I'm excited too. I think honestly, I think Detroit will win that just because they had that 1 week off. So Detroit will probably win that. But if, like you said, Washington is playing with house money, there's nothing more than I would love to see. I would love to see nothing more, I should say, than Washington go in there and beat Detroit. Oh, man, that would be incredible.
Man, look, at this point, anybody wants to knock off any of the highly touted teams.
Yep.
Especially on the NFC side.
Yep.
Go Rams, go Commanders.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah.
Go Rams, go Commanders.
Yep.
But, I think we've kind of covered it there with the Lions versus Commanders. I think the Lions should win this game, top to bottom. I just think they're offensively, they're so skilled. They're pretty deep. Jameson Williams is really rounded into form. They figured out exactly how they like to use him. Amon-Ra, oh my God, I don't know if there's a wide receiver that I like more in the league than that dude. He is my number one, like, Dudu got into a fist fight in the offseason wide receiver. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
he
yeah. Oh
just,
yeah. No, well, like you hear it. I mean, you can tell he's got clearly that chip on his shoulder. You hear him say that he knows all the names of the people that got drafted, all the wide receivers that got
they
drafted in
got
front
one
of
on
him.
the other side. I'm gonna be staring at him from the
Yeah,
sidelines. Is literally what he said this week.
yeah.
Talking
So
about one of the guys on the Commanders.
no, I believe it. I mean, I believe it. The one thing that I do like about Detroit is that the grit. They're playing together, and I feel like that's what it takes to win a championship is playing together. Now, the one downside to Detroit is that they are leaking oil, man. They're losing players left and right, and I've only seen Andy Reid be able to handle that. And I will give it to Dan Campbell. That man is doing one heck of a job
I
up
think the
there.
thing that
So
really keeps them afloat is their offensive line being so damn talented that and their coordinator on that side being so good.
Oh yeah.
They can really control the game as an offense and really help their defense, keep them off the field and put up extra points and get them a lead. And that makes the loss of personnel on the defensive side a little bit easier to manage. But Aaron Glenn is a psychopath and an insane defensive coordinator. And, I want to talk about Amik Robertson because we haven't recorded since week 18 that battle for number one. But holy shit, Amik Robertson one-on-one versus Justin Jefferson. What did you hear his line in the locker room?
Which one?
They tried to bury me, but you can't bury what's made from the dirt. Like just fucking dog, bro.
I like
and
that.
that was just like post-game locker room. They
Damn.
give him the game ball, and that just comes out. Like that's the kind of shit that only happens when your team is that built in. But go and find that clip. If you and you guys watching, if you haven't seen that clip, go find it and watch Terrion Arnold, the first round corner that they drafted in the locker room. He's kind of like Robertson's here, and he's like kind of over here in the shot. And his face is just like, oh, like, but it's like I can only imagine being in the locker room and hearing a guy who was a 5'9", multi-cut, pure effort player come in. And it was really cool to find out that he and Justin Jefferson have been playing each other since high school. And
shit. Yeah, nice.
Absolute dog. But just to kind of highlight, same thing as Spags, right? Like Aaron Glenn, these guys, they find ways to make the guys' skill sets do exactly what they need to do and put them in the best position. Let's move on to the Rams versus Eagles. Okay. Holy shit, the Rams. Wow.
I mean, McVay, bro. That dude can coach, man.
They were cooking, bro.
Yeah, I like Sean. I like Sean McVay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That offense was pretty terrifying. Just the efficiency that they operated at was so much fun to see. And it was top to bottom. You know, coming into the season, teams thought that the Rams could be a pretty good team, and they had like 77 offensive linemen injured coming into the year. And it's kind of the same thing where like nobody was really talking about those things and how as long as they stay afloat and they get into the dance, like you get a top tier head coach, you get a baller at quarterback, and you have weapons. And then you've got a young, hungry defense and young Shula out there calling his ass off, dude. That top to bottom team performance was so much fun to watch the Rams play last week.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see just Eagles and all that. The only thing is like Eagles are clicking, dude. I can very much see the Eagles making it to the Super Bowl because Eagles are clicking. That's for sure.
Yeah,
but I don't know. That's Eagles and Detroit would be a good matchup. I don't know if they played at all this season, but that would be a great matchup for the NFC Championship, I think.
So the Vikings, as good as the performance was by the Rams, The one thing that
was just sad.
The major thing that I came away from that game thinking was the Rams did more than enough offensively, but my God, Sam Darnold.
Honestly,
I felt bad by the end of the first quarter watching him. It was so clear that the quick pressure early in that game, that dude was sprinting backwards. I'm literally sitting there and like all of us watching in the or throw it away. Like, what? Do you, just throw it away. 12-yard sack. It's like, dude, and poor Kevin O'Connell. I mean, I was listening to Mina Kimes and Bill Barnwell today on the Mina Kimes preview.
Shout out Nina.
Shout out Lenny. That's your dog. But Barnwell pointed out that if you go back and watch that game, which I meant to do, but I haven't yet, he said there were at least 4 touchdowns and 150 yards passing that Darnold left out there. And there were like, I can remember one of the plays where it was either he threw a pick or it was like he tried to hit a guy on a crossing route and just threw a bad ball behind him. I think it was a pick. But you see where he throws the ball, and as you're watching it from the angle they give you on the broadcast, you can see the wheel route coming wide open down the sideline. And there's a hole between the cover 2 corner and the safety. And it's like, bro, that is an 18-yard completion where if there's a 6-yard hole for you to drop that over the corner into. And if you do, that guy might still be running like right now. And there were so many of those plays that were out there on the field. And it was one of those, like, I just felt so bad for Sam Darnold because it was clear that these last couple of weeks, he wanted to play well so badly that he just spun himself out. He just lost. He got lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
So
last 2 games were just rough.
And I'll be interested to see, because I do think the Rams defense played well, but I don't think they played 9-point defense well.
No.
And, it's like if this was Kirk Cousins from last year, the Rams probably lose, in my opinion. But it was because at least Kirk doesn't fall apart like that, right? Like,
listen,
Kirk makes the play that's there. Kirk's not going to make a play outside of the play. But Kevin called a good enough game to win that game.
We've seen Kirk Cousins not play well in the playoffs as well, so I don't want to necessarily.
We honestly have seen Kirk play better in the playoffs than not. Like, you go back and look at the last few years when he took them to the NFC Championship game, they lose to the Saints on a literal, the fucking Saints defender pile drive the wide receiver while the ball was in the air and they don't get a call. Then that basically happens the next year against the Rams, and the Rams win the Super Bowl that year. Like, I truly believe that the Vikings had a Super Bowl team 2 times with Kirk Cousins. They just had Vikings luck. It's just Vikings, just like the Charger.
Yeah.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm being a little facetious. I'm stretching a little bit there, but
I was going to say,
I honestly was like, dude, just put fucking Daniel Jones in, like, for the second half. What are you losing? Like, 1 score and a stop, and you're in the game. It's a 10-point game. But I can see why they didn't do that. I respect keeping the faith in Sam Darnold. He got you to this point. You kind of, you dance with who you brought to the dance, sort of thing, right? But all that being said, the Rams offensively are terrifying. Defensively, they're hungry. They play incredibly hard. I'm just going to be curious to see what it looks like, in my opinion, in a real playoff game versus the Eagles next week.
Yeah.
I think if you can shut Saquon Barkley down and you can heat Jalen up a little bit, I think the Rams could win this game. I really do. This is probably the closest of the games outside of the game we're going to talk about next. Of the 4 games, this one feels, outside of like the 2 best teams being left, this feels like the underdog really isn't as much of an underdog.
Oh,
in
yeah.
the situation.
I can see anybody winning that game for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Saquon could go off for 235 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, and the game's over because he's just grinding it out. And the Eagles have a 2-to-1 time of possession ratio. But it could also end up with the Eagles having a 2-to-1 time possession ratio, and Matt Stafford goes for 345 and 4 tutties, and the Rams are going to the championship game again. This is another one of those house money teams, right? Like, no expectation on the Rams, absolutely none. But I think the Eagles are kind of playing in that same realm of space as well. Somehow, weirdly enough, I think they might be better than last year's team, but people aren't looking at them in the same way. I think maybe because the passing game hasn't felt as consistent throughout the year. We had the Jalen and AJ Brown aren't friends from Brandon Graham, 3-week fiasco sort of a thing. I just don't think I don't distrust the Eagles. I just don't think I trust them as much as I trust some other teams.
Yeah. I mean,
they're much more likely to give me a normal average performance than a raised level like playoff performance. Is kind of my feel on it.
Yeah, no, I'm just excited to see playoff football. Really, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a fun game.
Yeah.
But we're 56 minutes in, and I think we're now at the point where we can talk about the biggest game of the weekend.
I feel that. Yeah.
Bar none. Arguably, potentially the game of the year up to this point.
Yeah.
Bills versus Ravens.
Yeah.
MVP versus MVP. Two of the absolute best teams in the league. And I'm so glad that our team plays first and these teams play last. Because I want to be sitting down watching every moment of this game.
Well, and I mean, just because I work, like we've said it multiple times, I work for the organization. I'm so glad that I get
Saturday.
that we do Saturday, whatever, and then Sunday I can actually watch it, because there's so many times where in the playoffs, like because there's another game afterwards, or we play the second game, I don't get to see, any games that are normally that day. So I'm just so happy that it is that day. Uh-oh. You muted.
I wasn't doing it for the shirt. I just got hot.
I gotcha. But
so you had some stats about these two quarterbacks that you were talking about, you wanted to bring up. So I want to hear them.
Yeah, so this kind of will
well, actually, I have just a couple, so let me throw mine out before, because yours are going to be more talking points. So I was just looking at some of the general next-gen stats for these two quarterbacks. So tight window percentage throws this season, incredibly low. Josh Allen has a 16.8% tight window. That's 1 yard of separation or less. And Lamar's only at 11.1. And those stats make so much sense to me. These are two of the most creative quarterbacks in the league, and they are arguably the best at buying themselves time and just directing traffic and finding guys open as the play develops. 31.6% pressure rate for Allen, 32.6% quarterback pressure rate for Lamar. Allen's receivers on the year are averaging 3.6 yards of separation on his completions. Lamar's are 4.3. So again, exactly what I said before. These two guys, that number is boosted by the fact that they're going to scramble. I mean, think about the play a couple weeks ago where Lamar has a defensive lineman in his face and he just kind of doesn't even move. He just kind of shimmies and takes a half step back and dimes it into the back of the end zone to a wide open wide receiver. The couple of Rashad Bateman touchdowns over the last couple of weeks where it's like, who was supposed to be covering him? Where there's nobody on the screen. Zay Flowers getting open on those routes down the field. Versus the blitz.
Is Zay Flowers playing? Do you know?
I don't know. Let me pull up the injury report real quick. So, first the blitz. Josh is 85 of 140, 1,189 yards, 16 tutties, 1 pick. He has 6 sacks and only 53 pressures against the blitz. 140 dropbacks versus the blitz, 53 pressures.
Damn.
Lamar, 123 of 176 versus the blitz, 1,740 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 9 sacks, 71 pressures. These two dudes against the blitz, that used to be the way that you could beat Lamar. That was kind of the playbook to beat him, was heat him up. A couple of years ago, people will forget, the Dolphins played the Ravens and they beat the crap out of them. And they ran the same blitz against Lamar like 25 plus times. Same blitz, same play call over and over and over. And he never found a way to beat it. Even last year, that was still kind of the way that you got to him, was you heat him up, you get creative, you find ways to blitz him. This year, that is not the way to beat him. The only way to beat these guys now is to just try and contain them, try and keep them from running as long as possible, and hope that you can make them operate the offense, and you can beat them that way. Versus pressure, so not just blitzes, but versus pressure, 68 of 133 for Lamar, 1,030 yards, 9 tutties, 1 pick, giving up 23 sacks, 178 pressures, 51.1% completion rate. That is insane. Josh Allen, 60 of 137, 973 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks, 14 sacks, 43.8% completion rate. Still arguably 2 of the tops in the league. I wrote down Mahomes's earlier, and Mahomes is 71 of 149, 827 yards, 8 tutties, 4 picks, 36 sacks, 47.7% completion percentage. Just those 3 guys versus pressure. That's why they're the 3 best teams arguably in the league this year. The quarterback play is on another level for these guys. Those are the stats that I kind of nerded out on beforehand, just the quarterbacks in particular. I wanted to see how they were, because I think that's ultimately these situations, I think, are what's gonna win the game. Blitzes and quarterback play under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to be a high scoring game, just because, again, both of these quarterbacks are ridiculous, and their defenses of both of these teams are not very good. So
I could see it being like a 30-point, sub 30-point.
I can see it being 40 burgers each.
Well, I'm saying sub 30 points combined first half, and then like plus 40 in the second half.
Yeah,
where they both just, because both guys just have to start making plays, and the sanity level just
Now that's what I hope the first time these team played earlier than in the year. I'm hoping that we actually get what we wish for the second come around, because the first game, fucking Baltimore just walloped Buffalo. So I'm hoping that it's not a blowout, honestly.
Well, Buffalo has Matt Milano back, Terrell Bernard, and I think one other player, a big time player for them coming back in this game that they didn't have. I also don't think they had. Did they have Amari Cooper in that game?
I do not know.
I think they might have. I think they might have, now that I think about it. But
yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot that has shifted for both of these teams since then.
Yep.
And what both of these teams, coaching staffs, offenses, defenses, what they have proven to us, just like the Chiefs, in the playoffs, they know how to raise the level of play. I'm going to be really intrigued by, to me, this game potentially could separate these two guys in how I think about them, because both of them have clearly shown they can make a play in the moment when it has to happen. Josh Allen early in the season, the 4th down run against us to ice the game. Lamar this year has just been playing out of his mind. But the reason that everybody respects the Chiefs is because we have shown you, and Patrick Mahomes has shown you, that in the actual biggest moments, he has figured out how to make the play that is necessary to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really feel like either of those two has had that moment for them yet. And it's not through any fault of their own. I mean, Josh Allen put his team up with 13 seconds to go. He just happened to have to be playing against Patrick Mahomes on the other sideline. Lamar Jackson, he had the best offensive in NFL history last year, and arguably the best defense that we've seen in the last 15 years. It just didn't matter. We figured out how to make the plays when it mattered most. So I want to see one of these two guys do something to win this game for this team.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll be prepared for hopefully the fight that comes in Arrowhead next week, when whoever makes it through that war,
Bro,
has to come in.
I mean, I know this is gonna sound really bad, but I hope they come in beat up too, because just better.
At this point, we're this close. I will take everything that helps the Chiefs become the first team in history to win.
Who would you rather face though? Who would you rather see?
I think I would rather face the Ravens, but I would rather beat the Bills.
Yeah. I want to face the Bills, that way we can get that rematch, honestly.
I mean, I'm fine with that too. I saw it was either a tweet or a Blue Sky or something earlier today, but it was like the Chiefs are the best matchup versus the Ravens. The Ravens are the best matchup versus the Bills, and the Bills are the best matchup versus the Chiefs. And then a Bills fan commented, well, if that's the case, then we're going to lose to the Ravens, and then the Chiefs are going to beat the Ravens and go to the Super Bowl. Yeah. And it's like, I'm giggling. I don't think that's, but I kind of agree. Like, that's kind of the way I see it too, is the Chiefs defense can stop Derrick Henry. We've proven that.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how to play against Lamar.
Yep.
And I don't think that their pass catchers are more talented than our secondary or our linebackers.
Especially if we get Watson back.
And Lamar is much more creative throwing the ball this year on the scramble than I feel like he has been in the past. So that gives them a little more. But like that's how I view it, right? Keep Lamar in the pocket, make him beat you throwing the ball. Just don't let him run crazy. Josh Allen, to me, especially this year, feels much like a force of nature. It's like you can't corral a tornado. There's nothing you can do but wait till it's done.
Yeah.
And that's more of how I feel about Josh this year. Is I don't really know what you can do everything you can. That guy will just do what he did, where he breaks through the line, stiff arms a defensive lineman, trucks through your middle linebacker, and then dives over the safety for a touchdown. Like that. That's more what I'm scared of with them. Is I still think our team is better than both. I still think we're the best team in the AFC, but if you make me choose, I don't really want to play the Bills, just because I feel like, I don't know, maybe they were due because they beat us in the regular season a couple of times, and maybe that bodes well for the Chiefs as a whole because it's the FU get back game. It's hard to beat a team twice in the same season. So, that goes against us when we play the Ravens again. If we have to play them again, it goes for us if we play the Bills. But honestly, I'm going to go the opposite way in what I want to happen. Neither one of them is ideal.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen,
these are the two best teams in football, not named Chiefs or Lions.
Yeah,
I don't really want to play either one.
I was hoping that they both lost in the first round, but that didn't happen either. So.
Yeah, I'm not. They should be more scared of the Chiefs than we are of them. But no,
none of the three fan bases should feel good about having to play any of the other three in this situation.
Mhm.
I think I would like to beat the Bills more, just because I feel like there's more Bills fans that are irrational than Ravens fans, but it's probably because we've punked the Ravens more than we have the Bills at this point, and the Bills have played us and beat us a couple of times in the regular season, so they feel like they have that talking point to go with. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Bring on either one. We got to get
Yeah.
through the Texans. We got to
Same.
stay healthy. And then I hope those two teams just beat the hell out of each other and come limping into Arrowhead. I want this. There are very few times that I've wanted something this bad, but
This
man,
repeat.
I want this. My dad, we were talking about who was going to go to the championship game if the Chiefs win, and we both agreed like we're not really going to talk about it, right? He's taken my uncle to this weekend's game, and I'm so happy for my uncle to go. It so happens that my sister's bridal shower is this weekend, so my dad was like, "Well, if the girls from St. Louis are coming in, just ride in and come in on Saturday. I'll take you to the game." So I'm really excited for that. But I told my dad, I said, I'm not going to be mad no matter who you take. I have 3 sisters, if you didn't know, and they're all big Chiefs fans, and they all deservedly should go to this game too. I don't have any more of a right to it than they do. But what I did tell my dad was, I am your only son.
I'm your first, damn it.
And I think I would be able to stomach it, but that would be really hard to stomach not having that. Me and my father legitimately have probably seen over 100 NFL games in Arrowhead Stadium, without exaggeration. 25, 26-year season ticket holders. I started going to games with my dad solely at 6. I have been in that stadium for far more losing seasons than I have winning. And I would not be upset if one of my sisters got to go. But I'll be damned if I wouldn't love to have that memory for the rest of my life if the Chiefs win the AFC Championship game and go to the Super Bowl for a 3rd straight time to try and win it for the first time ever, 3 in a row.
Yep. Yeah, no,
Dad, it's out there in the ethos, it's out there in the world. So
I'm excited, bro. I am excited. Yep. No. Real quick though, before we get off this topic, I just kind of wanted to throw you a stat that I heard.
Yeah, I want to hear these.
Once a hand in at the drive. C-Dot, actually, you know what? He wasn't even in the drive whenever I heard this. Now that I think about it, it was the show before.
Yeah.
So they put up Josh Allen's not playoff record because it's not the greatest, but the quarterback that he's beaten in the playoffs.
Oh, this is gonna get spicy real quick.
It gets, whenever I got to thinking about that, and I was like, oh, and they're like, now I'm gonna name the names.
So before you get to that, I just speaking on this topic, I saw somebody tweet out during last week's playoffs. The NFL, the NFL playoffs are a reminder that there's only 5 good NFL quarterbacks actually playing in the league at any one time. And there's an entire industry built around making you believe that there's more than that. So carry on.
So these are now Josh Allen has played 11 playoff games. He is 6-5. All right. These are the 6 quarterbacks that he's beaten. Okay. Most recently, Bo Nix this year, Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, Mac Jones, Phillip Rivers, whenever he was with the Colts.
Yeah.
Colts Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
And he does have a Lamar Jackson win in 2020 where Lamar Jackson didn't play very well. He was 14 for 24, 162 yards, no touchdown, 3 sacks, 1 interception, and he was 9 for 34 rushing. So, I mean, he does have a Lamar Jackson in there, but those are the quarterbacks.
I believe that was the last year of that offensive coordinator for Lamar, and the next year they brought Munkin in. It might have been 2 years later.
I think so, but yeah, that was 2020, so that was even a while ago. That wasn't really good, Lamar Jackson. That was pre MVP.
Still a good Ravens team, but
yeah,
not where they're at right now.
Right. So whenever I heard that, I was like, dude, that's crazy. Like whenever you get to thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess he hasn't really. Who has he beat? He hasn't really beaten anybody. So I got to thinking
across the field from you. Don't get me wrong, but who are the 5 that he's lost to?
That I do not know. I'm sure a lot. Patrick Mahomes is a lot in there. Patrick Mahomes probably twice. But I do not. I do. But while you look that up, let me tell you Lamar's record, because I had to go on there and look up Lamar's record. Lamar has he's 7 games in the playoffs. He is 3-4, and the 3 quarterback that he's beaten: Ryan Tannehill, C.J. Stroud, and Russell Wilson.
So it's 2023. Allen lost to Mahomes last year.
Yep.
2 years ago, he lost to Burrow.
Yep.
2021 was the overtime loss
to
the Chiefs.
I know 2 of them were to Mahomes. The Burrow one.
2020 was Mahomes.
Oh, so 3.
And if we go all the way back to 2019, they lost to the Houston Texans. And that was Deshaun Watson.
There you go.
Wow.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yep.
It seems like such a simple thing that you should have thought of. People should have thought about.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it puts things into perspective whenever you hear that you're like, oh, wait, like the dude hasn't done, like, I knew that he hasn't really done much in the playoffs. We all know this. This is quite known thing. But whenever you put it like that, like, wait, those are the quarterbacks that he's had to face up against. So this is by far, I feel like, one of their biggest, if not their biggest, playoff games for both of these quarterbacks, I feel like.
So they both lost to Mahomes last year. They both lost to Burrow the year before that.
You looking up Lamar?
Yeah, 2021, Lamar lost to the 8-9 Steelers. Or were they 8-9? Yeah, they were 8-9.
Was that Rudolph, or was that whenever they still had Ben?
It was. Oh, Lamar was hurt. That was a Tyler Huntley game. Okay, so let's go one more year before that. Yep. 2020, they lost to Buffalo in the divisionals. So that's the year you were talking about. He was 14-24. Josh was 23-37, 1 touchdown. So, wow, that was a pretty crappy game both ways. Diggs had a decent game. Man, that's wild.
Right?
To think about.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm glad those are good stats.
Right. I mean, I heard it and I was like, oh shit. Like, it got you to thinking, and I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like, that dude hasn't really played anybody. You know, not like you said, I know you can only play the people that are in front of you, but I mean, surely one win, you know, in there. But yeah.
Okay, so Chiefs over Texans.
Yep.
Lions over Commanders.
Yep.
And I'm going to go Eagles over Rams.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to go Buffalo over Baltimore.
Ooh, okay.
What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
I got Detroit. I think Philly wins it as well. But I'm gonna take the Ravens.
I think I'm actually. I took the. Did I take the Eagles?
Did you take the Eagles?
I think I'm going to take the Rams.
You're gonna take the Rams?
Yeah, just based off our last talking point, I'm taking the quarterback I trust more.
Yeah. No, I want to see the Eagles lose, but I think the Eagles are gonna take that game.
Well, I legitimately, as I think about it, I think it's a good matchup on the offensive line and the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Saquon is insane. But man, I don't know. If the Rams offense comes out humming like they did last week, that it could be a much tougher game than I think people are expecting. I don't know. No, I'm going to stick with the Eagles. I'm going through it in my head because it's like I do like the Eagles' defensive line versus their offensive line.
It's going to be a good game for sure.
I like the secondary matchups. As long as Slay is healthy, I think their rookie is really good. Both the rookies are really good. I like DeJean and I like Mitchell. I like the interior defensive line pressure that they can generate as a unit, the Eagles for sure. So that's where I land on it. I like Cooper Kupp a lot. I just don't. He hasn't shown us that he can like take over a game like he used to be able to. So I can't realistically count on him because that was my first thought. I was like, well, man, if it's DeJean versus Kupp in the slot, or even DeJean versus Nakua in the slot, like I don't know that I can say DeJean's going to shut either one of those guys down. But I don't know that might be a little rose-colored glasses on Kupp. Nakua for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Puka is also so prone to getting hurt because he plays so damn hard all the time. And
well, and I mean, yeah, and
Tyron Williams had the knee injury right at the end of that game, and that's I don't think I can count on their running game quite the way that I would want to.
And Cooper Kupp has been so on and off, so that's I'm going to lean with. I feel like Phil is just a better team, and right now I feel like it's all about being the better team.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing better, I feel like. So, yeah.
So, Lions versus Eagles.
Yeah.
Who are you going to take in that?
I'm going to take the Eagles, not the Eagles, the Lions, just because I want to see them. I want to see Lions make it to the Super Bowl. I think that would be really cool for their fans. And I really don't want to see another Chiefs and Lions. I mean, if another Chiefs and Eagles Super Bowl. I mean, I think we've already seen dude, how crazy would it be if we go Chiefs 49ers twice and Chiefs Eagles twice, like that would be crazy. I want to see somebody else. So I think the Lions, the Lions, like, listen, I've been there before as a fan. I want to see that as a fan. I don't want them to see them win, but I would like to see them make it to the Super Bowl.
Look, not against us.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Next year.
Yes, yeah,
next year, anybody in the league,
if we're not there,
anybody in the league can win it.
If we're not there,
I won't even care.
Yeah.
Just let us get this one. Just let us I know we sound like such assholes right now, Chiefs fans. Just let us have this third in a row.
But it's just
if this was your team,
yep, you would be right there. You would be in the same shoes.
If it isn't your team, right? Like, I'm a fan of players on other teams. I could, if this was if it was Josh Allen, and we were in the situation, and the Bills had to, like. Don't get me wrong, I'd want to beat them too, but if we didn't, then I would be like, I want them to win it.
Yep.
That I want to see the history. That accomplishment is insane. So I want this one bad, and I know as bad as you and I want it, it is nowhere near
the fire that is burning within the
The
inside
players, the
of
people that are actually
everybody
playing
on
for it.
that
Yeah.
roster. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it for sure.
So you had a question for us?
Yeah. So this leads me to this year's, our very first. This question is
Number 1 of 2025.
Hey, I don't know if you've heard the new Bad Bunny album, bro, but it's fucking fire. We'll have it playing in the background. Why not? All right. First question. I only have 2 quick ones for
Well,
you
you
today.
can't have it playing too loudly because we'll get copyrighted.
Oh, I know. Listen, we're not. It's not even playing. That's not even
I'd
his
like this to
album.
stay
It's
up.
not even his album, bro. That's
All right,
fucking.
go ahead.
It's all right. Quick question. All right. So Matt Nagy and Spags are both being. Their names are being both tossed around for hot candidates for head coaches next year.
Mhm.
Now, do none, one, or both leave next year? Or I should say, the question is, do none, one, or both leave next year?
I think none.
None?
Yeah, I think none.
Okay.
I feel like if Spags wanted to, he would have already gone. And I feel like if you're Spags, there's like, as far as we know, because coaches' contracts aren't disclosed, but as far as we know, the reporting has been that last year, Spags was signed to the highest contract for a coordinator in the league. So he's probably making more money than a third of the head coaches in the league are right now. And I think a guy who's been around the league as long as he has, who is widely praised as one of, if not the best defensive coordinators in the league, playing with Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the ball, it would be really, really hard for me, outside of just wanting to have my own team, to leave the situation that you're in. You keep getting young talent that is exactly what you're looking for in what you do. This team has plenty of young talent. When we finally do lose Chris Jones, there's going to be a ton of money that opens up, and maybe then we do another Frank Clark style trade where we bring in another top end pass rusher. I mean, people forget the Chiefs are aggressive at finding those pieces. And I think they're fully empowered to, Spags has earned his right to say, hey, I want this guy. I like this guy. I think it's easier to find defensive talent to fit what he does. I think it's just such a wonderful situation that it'd be really hard for me to want to leave. Nagy, though, an offensive guy where you're not in full control of everything, that's the one that I think has a higher chance of leaving. And even though Chicago didn't go, I think the way that people remember Chicago, they forget that the offense was actually pretty good. And when you go back and look at it, like what he was doing and how creative he was as an offense, they were doing some shit that people were stealing from them. He just unfortunately drafted Mitch Trubisky.
Mm-hmm.
And, but that tells me a lot that Nagy would be open to, okay, I want a prestigious job. I want to have the backing. They gave him a lot of run. He took him to the playoffs. And I think doing that with Mitch Trubisky, now we see like that was a much better coaching job than everybody gave him credit for. And I think now we're seeing he also was dealing with an absolute shit show. The Bears have been nothing if unstable before and after him.
Before, yeah.
So,
and still.
And as soon as he left, I think the year that he left, didn't we lost in the playoffs that year, I believe, right? Or was it the next year?
I'm not exactly sure.
We lost to the Bengals. But either way, in that span that he was not here, it was the only time we lost. He comes back, we win the Super Bowl. And then, oh, by the way, we have an insane offensive, high level.
Wait. You talking about Matt Nagy?
Yeah.
No, he was gone for a while because we had
No, I know,
Bieniemy.
but I'm saying he came back last year and we won the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah. No, whenever he came back, we won. But
And I don't know if you remember the state of the Chiefs offense last year, talent-wise, but it was terrible. So if you're somebody in the league looking at this, he did a lot with a little last year. Don't get me wrong, he had Patrick Mahomes to work with and Andy Reid, but if you're selling yourself to a team to be a head coach, these are the things that you're saying. Look at this year. I lost my number one wide receiver, my number two wide receiver. I mean, we went through the list earlier, and all he did was keep us as the third best third down conversion team in the league, kept us as arguably the highest efficiency running team in the league. We were consistently putting our team in incredible position to continue drives and win football games. So there's a whole lot of positive that I think there is around Matt Nagy that people don't really recognize because we're Chiefs fans and we have the experience of Mahomes throwing for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. And most Chiefs fans aren't real smart ball guys, and they expect that every single year. So rather than being proud of what we've done and recognize the context of the offensive situation, they're mad that Patrick Mahomes didn't throw 4 touchdowns because you drafted Mahomes 1-1. Don't get me wrong, I drafted Breece Hall 1-2. So we both swung hard.
Yeah.
But it's like you had a chance, a real good chance, Lee, coming into this season for Mahomes to be far more stat generating than what he was this year. But as far as real life football goes, we just kept winning.
Yeah, no, the only reason why I think same reasons why I think you mentioned why I think Matt Nagy has potential to leave are the same reasons why as well. And the only reason why I think Spags has a reason to go is because he said it. I can't remember what podcast he was on, but he was on Peter Schrager's podcast, and he said that if he was given the chance to be a head coach again, would he take it? And he said definitely. So, but he backhanded with saying he's happy where he's at, blah 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 blah. So, him saying that he would be happy to go somewhere, or he would want to have another chance, is what makes me think that he would take another chance. I'm not saying he's going to take another one now,
for sure,
but that's why I'm saying he will.
Totally agree. I think Spags played it perfectly, right? He went on there and he signaled to the league, "I'm open.
Mm-hmm.
Ask me."
Yep.
Ask me, because I want to have the conversation. But I think to the point that we're both making here, like there's no reason for him to just take it just because it's offered.
Right.
I really do think it's got to be the right situation. But it would be, if we lose one or both, it'll be really interesting to see what they do. I'd be interested to see if Nagy leaves, if we don't entertain bringing Eric Bieniemy back, or if they feel like we've grown. I've said it for a couple of years. I would be happy to bring him back. Them to bring a 30-something-year-old, from one of these other creative offenses. Bring me somebody from the Tampa Bay offense, or from Carolina's offense, or even somebody from Miami, right, or San Fran, or Detroit. Like I'd like to see some guys from a different ilk come in and bring some new ideologies, because our staff clearly steals from the other good teams. It'd just be interesting to see somebody not really from the fold.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to either. I mean, if we bring Bieniemy back, I wouldn't hate it. If we bring fresh meat, I wouldn't be against it either. I think Andy Reid has shown multiple times that he can coach and coach the best of them as well. So
look, the defense in Spags they trust, the fan base in Veach we trust.
Yep.
In Clark Hunt I trust.
Yep.
Clark Hunt I trust. Right.
Yep.
They've proven more than enough times that those guys know what they're doing. The only thing I can question them on is, what are you doing evaluating wide receivers?
Listen.
Outside of Rashee Rice, I don't understand it.
No, I agree with
But
that.
everybody's got to have a wart, right? You can't be perfect.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, nobody's perfect. All right. And last question. I don't know if you've heard this interview yet, but Sean Payton went on I believe, one of their local podcasts or local interviews and said that he felt very confident about the next opponent, aka Kansas City, had he won the game against Buffalo. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. They have our number. And if you don't agree with that, you're an insane person. They beat us with Russell Wilson, bro. We should have lost to him this year. That team is built to play us, and they are coached at an extremely high level. I completely agree with where he's coming from. I don't think they would have beat us, but I totally agree. That was one of the matchups I absolutely don't want. There's three teams, really two teams, that have been built purely to stop Patrick Mahomes: Denver and Los Angeles. The teams in our division for the last 6 years have been drafting guys to stop our team, to slow us down. And the Chargers and the Broncos are really close. The problem that they have is you can't do anything to game plan around Patrick Mahomes. And don't get me wrong, we were shorthanded in the game earlier this year, but like we had to block a damn field goal as time expired to win. Like,
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I don't think that's not outlandish to me at all, dude. No, not at all. Like that team should feel like they have our number, but they don't. Like they've only beat us once, but they should feel confident that they've got the right pieces and the right plan in place. It's just you got to beat us.
Well, I think he is delusional.
You got to beat Buffalo.
I think he is delusional, and clearly he was looking ahead, and clearly that's why he got the fucking beats break out of him by Buffalo, is because he was clearly looking ahead, thinking if we get Kansas City, we can clearly win that game, when I don't think he necessarily had an idea of what to do with Buffalo.
I don't necessarily think that. I think it's at this point of the year, it's matchups. Like that's when we talked about who would we rather play, Ravens or Bills. Like all we did was they're both MVP quarterbacks.
Yes and no. Yes and no, because I don't necessarily think
they're not built to play the Bills. So
right,
and that's why it's harder for us to beat the Bills than it is the Ravens.
But when it comes to this time of year, I don't necessarily. I think matchups has a huge part of fact, except if you have that guy, which we do. And I think anybody who we face, we would have beat. If we would have got Denver this week, I'm not saying I would have felt as confident as I do when we have Houston, but I still would have felt confident with us beating them. Yes, you're right that we had to block a field goal. And I feel like clearly because they beat our second and third string players, that put a lot of confidence in them. But I think that it's a lot of blind confidence, because I very much think that we could have. I just don't think Sean Payton should be going on a podcast saying, I feel very confident about our next opponent when you got the beats break out of you by your first opponent.
I mean, I'm fine with it. Like, you're the head coach. You got it. That's your job, is to talk positively about your team. And I don't think I think he completely believes it. I think I'm not really confident. I think he probably felt really confident going into Buffalo. It's just Buffalo's a really good team.
Yeah.
Like, we felt confident when we play Buffalo. We've still lost to them before. So, no, that was an interesting one. I didn't see that, but I did hear that. The talking point I heard more than anything, you probably heard CDOT talking about this earlier today, was he said that he felt like they had the guy at quarterback, and they went through their kind of like, who do you think has the quarterback? Who do you think like might, and then who doesn't, sort of a thing.
So
I don't disagree with Sean Payton. I think I think Bo Nix is the guy. He
Oh,
did
as far as
more.
that goes,
He did more
yep.
than enough this season to prove to me that, like, okay, that's. I don't know that he's going to grow into a top 8 quarterback, but he's definitely going to be top half of the league for sure. Top 10 to top 8 for sure. Can he push into the 5? I mean,
I'll say
the
this
dude
much.
is slinging some dimes, and he's got wheels too. So
Yeah, I'll say
plays
this
his ass
much. I wouldn't necessarily say that he's got the guy. I think he has a guy. For now, it's his rookie year. We've all seen sophomore slumps, and we've all seen really good rookie years, and then not so much afterwards. So, I would say he's got a good quarterback for now. I want to see what he does from now on, because we all know, a team gets a lot much harder to manage after the rookie year goes away. So he's got 3-4 years. Let's see what he can do with that.
Yeah. I'll be. The Broncos are a scary team. They're a scary team moving forward because they have the highest dead cap number in the league this year, and they're going to have so much free money next year and the year after. And just to your point, they've got three more years of rookie contract for their quarterback before they're going to have to pay the piper, if he is still at that level at that point. But they've got everything they need to load up in whatever areas they don't feel are stocked up well enough. So whether that's grabbing another wide receiver, I mean, could you imagine Cortland Sutton and T. Higgins on the same team? Because if they want to do that, they can. That sucks. That sucks for us. That really sucks for us. But the Chargers are going to have enough cap room, and they need another wide receiver. So maybe they go after T. Higgins. And I don't want Lad McConkey and
they need a new quarterback. What they need.
I don't agree with that. But
I think we can go back just the same stats that we can go. We can pull up Justin Herbert's stats and the playoffs.
I mean, again, Quentin Johnson, and I don't know who their third wide receiver is, so I'm going to give him a bit of a pass. I don't know who they had starting at running back. Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnson are the only wide receiver names that I know, and I only know one of them because he hasn't been good. I don't know who their tight ends are, but Will Dissly was the guy who was their one, and that dude was good 5 years ago for a half a season in Seattle before he blew his knee out. So give that dude a couple of weapons and
I mean, again, like, if you need weapons to be good, then yes, but then I would argue then you're not the guy if you need weapons to be good. But then maybe we do this next podcast. We'll see what team has it and what team has not, as far as quarterback goes. So I'd be interested to see your opinion as far as teams that have, out of all 32, who do you think has them and who do you think does not?
Yeah.
So
maybe
we can do that next time.
That works for me. Sounds great.
Heck yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs, baby.
Let's get this third one in a row. Let's take this dub against the Texans. Get that business handled first.
Let's get back to that Arrowhead Invitational, baby.
And then hopefully we can be doing this again next week before the championship game.
Yep. Let's hope.
On that note, deuces.
Idiots out, baby. LA, be careful. Love you guys. Wishing guys all the best. Be safe, please. Wishing all you guys all the best of luck to everybody in LA, man.
Fans, please don't curse at the women in your stands. Please. Thank you.
Please and thank you.
Deuces.
Deuces.